guess the first thing we'd like to talk about are the minutes from February 4th on Tuesday. Those were sent out to you. Are there any additions or corrections or a motion for approval? Good. And a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Today we have two more of our groundwater management districts to report to us, and we will start with Jason Norquist, the interim manager of Groundwater Management District 3. Welcome, Jason.
You can tell I'm new to this. Chairman Minix, members of the House Water Committee, my name is Jason Norquist. I'm the Interim Executive Director of Southwest Kansas Groundwater Management District Number 3. I want to thank you for the opportunity to stand in front of you to report on 2024 activities of the district and to answer any questions. Our office has gone through a transition in 2024, but I want to assure you it has not deterred us from continuing to move the district forward in a positive manner. The board and staff have stepped up our drive to get more involvement from all of our members with the focus of making sure we get good information out while also continuing to make sure we hear what they have to say. There is a building of unity across our district that changes need to happen and the continued desire to keep the local control. One of the most important aspects of keeping forward progress is open, two-way communication. The district hosted 10 public meetings throughout the year. To keep the flow and attention of the meetings moving in positive directions, we reached out to the moderators from K-State. As the meetings progressed through the year, attendance grew. Those meetings allowed us to inform our members on a variation of plans we presented to them for our conservation initiative, while also allowing time to hear what they have to say and get their feedback from those that are directly affected. The communication did not stop with the meetings. Our directors and staff are taking the time to answer all calls, in-person visits, and emails. Again, two-way communication, answering any questions while listening to individual thoughts and perspectives. Staff also started to redesign our website. We want it to be the hub, a place for them to go to get all the information that they need and dates and times of meetings coming up. We have also not lost sight of the programs we've always offered. Work continues in the field with our field inspections, certified flow tests, and at the same time working with people, our constituents, on application assistance and making sure our members have a full understanding of their water rights. The board continues to support our annual iCare reports and the Upper Ark Watershed Group, which we started. Moving forward, there will be more public meetings and more model runs. We fully anticipate a good crowd at our annual meeting in March, followed by more localized producer meetings. The district intends to develop a program to extend our resource with equal priority to quantity and quality, while also maintaining the economic viability of our district. The board and staff at GMD3 appreciate the opportunity to be before you, and I would be happy to answer any questions and continue the two-way communication we're trying to build. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I believe Tony sent out some of your report.
Yes, they have a copy of our annual report that's submitted.
There's a copy of the annual report in your folders. I can sense Lindsay with a strong question somewhere. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if she's online. Do we have anybody online this morning? Okay. We might, does anybody else have any questions?
Well, thank you for being here this morning. I appreciate you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. I don't know what your intention was as far as reporting to us, and yes, we have the written report. But if you did not intend, I would ask that you just verbalize some of the priorities, some of the accomplishments accomplishments and so forth, not reading the whole annual report, but just verbalizing what you believe has been the most important the past year and going forward in the next year for GMD3.
Definitely. The biggest thing, like I said, is opening up the communications with stuff. We have run numerous model runs with different scenarios, going out to the public. You know, in the past, there's been some issue where you want to go off of past use, pumping records, how you going to do that. Working with KGS, you've heard of that Q-stable runs that they do. What we found out that makes it more centralized to that region in there. So most of our model runs have gone off the Q-stable. How do we get ourselves to the stability with it? And varying across the district with it. So during the meetings, we showed them different runs that we're going to take 10%. We're going to do half a Q-stable. We're going to build, but not only that, but you know, the first year might be 10% of the Q-stable. Next year, next 5 years, we're going to keep growing that and getting the input back from them. And it's been very interesting. It's been all over the board on the conversations we've had like that. Everybody's like, let's go to Q-stable right now. Others are, no, we need to work our way into it. We've heard from banks across the district with it. In the meantime, we have continued to work on our meter inspection program. Like I said, we have almost 12,000 wells in the district. We try to visit a quarter of them a year with it. Oh, sorry, we got about 10,000, almost 10,000 with it. Last year, we did just over 2,000 meter inspections, and what that does is allows them to get the information to the producer there that here's what your meter's reading. Is it reading accurately for you? Because GMD3 was one of the first districts to require flow meters on all the meters. Because the best way to manage the water is you got to know how much you're pumping out with it across the district. So we are there to help them with that process. Also doing certified flow tests. A couple of years ago, we started the Upper Ark Watershed Group along the Ark River. The grant started that for us. It's now pretty much working on its own, but we're there to support it as it goes through, so we're having annual meetings with that. We've also, like I said, our normal assistance with everybody, if they come in, have questions, because water rights in our district can get kind of complicated, especially with all the overlaps and place of use changes that can go on. So we always try to make sure they know what exactly their water right is, what they can do with it. On top of that, another thing that started a couple of years ago with a grant was they called it the iCare program for us. And that's where we send out, every water user in the district gets this one-page flyer. On that shows their Q-stable for that region and then compares them to other irrigators in the area, consistence, like crops, pumping rate, and so forth with it. But then at the bottom kind of gives them an idea of where they're at in the area and, like I said, what it'd take to be the Q-stable. And then there's a link where they can go to our website and get the story page to go through it for more information on it, like that. And like I said, it's just been open communication. We're working hard to get back into having at least a monthly or quarterly newsletter that goes out, improving that. And then just anytime anybody wants to talk to us, we come out and we'll talk to them on that. But we have ramped up our committee meetings. Like I said, our board is taking it very, very seriously. And we've had at least 3 committee meetings every month. If you ever go to our board meeting, which is usually the second Wednesday of every month, unless we change it, you'll find a different format, basically. We have tried to streamline our meetings, get the business that we need to take care of done, with still paying attention to the details, but then getting right into what's our next steps moving forward with our Conservation Initiative program, is what we're calling it. And those meetings can go 7 hours some days with it. So we've really ramped up the communications and feedbacks with not only our constituents, but also DWR has been great assistance for us, the Water Office, KGS. We're just building that relationship back to work together on things.
I appreciate that. And Mr. Chairman, I have one follow-up question, if I could, please. And I asked some of this because I think it's important for GMD3 to highlight what it's doing, some changes being made, because I know from the past that GMD3 has been on the hot seat. So my follow-up question is this. You referenced quantity and quality. How would you say that GMD3 is handling those two issues? Are they of equal importance, or is one receiving more attention than the other based on need and based on what's happening in GMD3?
We try to do equal on them, but you got to look at it kind of as a time frame on it, because we really have two areas in our district that we really show concern of water quality. The first one, there's been reports in this committee and other committees working with KGS that of the water quality coming across the state line from Colorado with it. That is more recent stuff, but we're paying attention to that. We're assisting with water sampling in that area. We were pretty happy, you know, because if you've ever been to those compact meetings, they will say the compact is on water, usable water. Well, in our eyes, that quality is part of usable water. But we understand the compact and how it was set up. But through discussions with not only us and other state agencies, you'll see in the last 3 years, there has been a real concerted effort to work on water quality coming down the Ark River for us. The first one, which has been in place for years, is down in Meade and Seward County. We have a natural formation of chlorides in there. You can't get into that chloride area. If you do, we watch the driller's log saying, okay, you have to stop drilling at this point. A little more active on making water quality samples when they do test holes and stuff like that. So we've been doing that for quite a few years, the process. But again, every time an application comes in, we're checking that out right away.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Peckert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Jason.
Hello.
You did a great job. Yeah, I have a question, or some questions about your financial statement. Okay, so I noticed that your income is less than your outgo. So, and it looks like the unencumbered cash balance has been declining.
Has been declining.
Yeah, so can you tell us what the plan is to keep above water, you know, keep your head above water and, you know, to have a greater balance?
That's a very good question. With, and like I said, we have been trying to do our best not get into that reserves that we had, but over time with things coming up, we've had to dip into it more. And our board has taken pride in trying to keep the assessments as low as we can, work as efficiently as we can, because their mindset has always been, instead of paying assessments and stuff, why don't they keep it in their pocket and they will make the progress they need, the updates to the pivot systems and stuff like that. But this last year, and it'll come out this year in the assessments, we did raise our assessments by 6 cents. We're up to 22 cents an acre foot now, which was really quite a good jump. But with everything going on, even that did not get much resistance from our public. They realized that in this day and age, inflation and everything else, and what we need to do, there's going to be an added cost to it. So they received that fairly well, but we did increase our assessments.
Representative Droege.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Norquist, for your presentation. I had a question on the auditor's report. Maybe I just don't understand it, but adverse opinion on the U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. Significance of the matter does not present fairly. Can you explain that a little bit?
Which page was that on?
This is page 1. It's adverse opinion on U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. In our opinion, because of the significance of the matter discussed on the basis for adverse opinion, the statement referred to above does not present fairly in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted. I'm sure it's all.
I was going to say, I'm not really up, almost like me talking to a lawyer, trying to explain to an accountant sometimes either with that. Every time we've gone through this, we have really good staff on hand between Patty Stapleton and Brandy Sneath with that goes through this audit. And every year they make suggestions that might help us, but they said we've never violated anything with our funds that we have. Everything is secured, we're properly manage them, and we've always had excellent audits throughout. So that part I really couldn't tell you for sure, I guess.
Thank you.
Representative White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. That's really good. I'm kind of interested in your support as the interim. Are you getting support from your peers, other directors of GMDs, and
Well, in my mind, I've been in excellent support with it. In fact, I think Shannon will hit on this later, but the GMD managers are in constant contact with each other, sharing information. This time of year, just like you're busy, we're busy looking at all bills, getting all different aspects of it. My board has been very supportive of what we're doing. Like I said, they've jumped in. They didn't always like the meetings because I'm taking time away from their businesses and stuff too, but there's no hassle with it. They are saying, we got to get this done. We're here for you. We had a great turnout from my district the other night at the legislative reception we held over the Beacon. They're there. They want to get themselves out there and in front of people and answer questions also. So I would say I've had tremendous support. And like I said, the staff of GMD3 has really stepped up. And there was no lull in it. We're moving forward. So.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Jason. I'm so sorry I missed the beginning of your presentation. I did have a chance to read through your submitted document last night, and I'll go back and watch your presentation this morning. I did have a couple questions based on kind of what I was reading. One is about your budget, and this is something we've talked about before, but you're one of the only, or I think you are the only GMD that does invest in the Water Congress at the level that you do. And I'm just wondering, is that something that I'm just kind of curious about the value that provides, or if that's something that you guys want to continue to invest in, or what kind of the benefit that provides for your GMD.
The Water Congress really, unfortunately, I think it's served its time. So I think the Kansas Water Congress it's beyond life support, I believe, too. So that part is out of it. We did believe in that. We did help support it because we thought it was a good group to bring them together. But like I said, with the dwindling attendance and support, we figure it's time to move on. Now, to counteract that, we still like to be active and make sure we're informed as best we can, not only in Kansas, but on the grander scale, through the United States. Currently, we are very active in the GMDA, which would be the Groundwater Management District Association. For 2 more weeks, I'm the president. So then I have to turn over my gavel on that. But going in organizations like that covers districts from Yazoo, Mississippi, all the way up to California, we get a lot of very good feedback going back and forth. In fact, you've heard talk about the Master Irrigator Program. That came through the GMDA, started down in Texas. So that's where it really kind of built. The next aspect of it also is the Groundwater Caucus for the National Water Resource Association. It's one of the biggest water policy lobbyist firms in the nation right now. And currently, one of my board members is the vice president of that. But through that, we can now interact with even more states, but get us up to, we have better communications with the Bureau of Reclamation and stuff like that. We're up trying to get the funds here. We're learning other states through that. Like Washington State had millions of dollars sent their way for water right retirement stuff. I'm like, why can't we get that out here to Kansas? So we're building that communication back and forth, even on the federal level. In fact, a couple months ago, we had a group from Idaho water users. Because we're part of the NWRA and the GMDA, they came out. We were fortunate enough to have Katie Durham from GMD1 come down, so they got to hear their programs. They got to go, we gave them a tour of some of the reclamation projects going on with the city of Garden State and so forth. So that communication is where we're focusing now.
Thank you, that's helpful. And it sounds like the NWRA and GMDA also provide some of those good national and groundwater connections throughout the United States.
Yes, like I said, even within our state and national like that, everybody has a water issue going on, and how we go about it, you'll find out the more you talk to them, it's like, that would work for us if we tweak it. And that's where it really comes in, the back and forth ideas.
Awesome. And then I do have one more question, if I can, Mr. Chair. So I was reviewing your priority areas too, and I know that, a couple of the districts, they have a priority area that encompasses the whole district. And I like the premise of that, where you're bringing everyone together. You believe that everyone is a priority. I do think that may present some challenges in terms of, where do you start? Where do you focus your efforts first as you're kind of identifying what areas have the greatest need in terms of their declines? So I'm just wondering if with the iCare project and some of the other things you're doing, if that's part of the discussion. I know in the past there's, been conversations around like a Finney-Kearney County Lima, or, I know there are fairly large declines in Haskell and Grant County. So some of those areas where you maybe see higher rates of decline, is there a desire to maybe start there and kind of focus on some of those areas first, or are you wanting to tackle the whole district all at once?
It's going to be one of those, we're going to tackle the whole district, but there is going to be a little bit of breakdown with it. Because you brought up a very good point. We are pretty good-sized districts, and we vary in that Q-stable number across it. But one thing that kept coming out during our meetings, public meetings we had, is if I'm in it, we're all in it. That's the way it ought to be. We all share this resource. That's what built us out here. And we have to face facts. Everybody in our district's having issues. There is declines all over. Some are not quite as big as the other ones, but everybody has them. And what we found out is some of those where you'll see the usable life of the aquifer, there's some areas we really have to focus on, and that's probably where going off the Q-stable, we might be a little more aggressive with it. But the folks that have, according to that map, 50, 75 plus years, they're still looking at things saying, I don't want to be like what happened, say, north of me or something like that. So we need to start acting now. And that's what I really felt through those meetings is the unity. We're the district here. We're going to work on it, but there will be some variance based on the Q-stable map that we're going off of. That's going to affect the cut. It might be everybody takes a 10% off Q-stable, but that Q-stable number is different in different regions. So we'll be affecting them that way with it.
That's helpful. And I also just want to applaud you guys. I really have seen and heard just, from folks in the area that you guys are really moving in the right direction. I think these public outreach meetings are a great step forward. I really see the initiative on your part to rise to the challenge for 2279 and to start many of these efforts in your district. So I just want to thank you and congratulate you guys on that effort.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? I guess I kind of have a comment. To piggyback on what Representative Vaughn was talking about. 2 years ago, people from your district, I kept hearing comments about I'm appropriated so many acre feet and I'm going to pump as much as I can so that I have the highest historical value in case I get a 25% cut because we know it's coming from the state. Now I'm hearing the comments about that use it or lose it type mentality is going away. We're changing the mentality to Q-stable. You guys coming to the table a little bit slower than some of the other GMDs, but you've leaped ahead in many ways, not just historical use that you're basing your decisions upon, but where we need to go to be Q-stable and looking forward. And I applaud you on that. I do sense a different attitude within the district and the direction your board's going, and I think that's very positive. So I want to thank you for that, and thank you for coming today to present.
Really appreciate that. What we've gone through, our producers out there do listen to what's going on up here, and every time there seemed to be a water bill the last few years, it would really panic them. In some cases, we did see them, I got to take it now, use it or lose it. And that is why when we have our meetings, they know this House Bill 2279, that's what it comes from. But we're actually doing kind of a rebranding, making it our districts, making it their deal. That's why we went to, instead of saying this is House Bill 2279, this is our one from the mindset to build off that, have them take ownership of it. And I'm very proud of our district. It is coming through.
We didn't mention much, but you're the interim director.
I'm the interim director, yes.
And the past director resigned several months ago. How's the process going to find a full-time director?
It is moving along. Some people may not think quite as fast as that, but it's another one of those cases where my board wants to make sure, because we are in a critical part of the district right now. It really is moving forward, and we want to make sure they get the right hire with it. So they've taken their time. We've gone through, we hired a headhunter to work with us, which has been fabulous because they weed out, and I'm in contact with her 2-3 times a week. It's moving along a little bit slower, but we are making progress with it and actually seeing some candidates. It's one of those jobs, just like a few others, that you might have the management skills, but man, we need you up to date on water stuff. Some of the stuff we can teach you and bring along, but it's kind of a combination there, but it's moving along very well, I think. And the board's taking it very seriously and wants to make sure they get the right person.
All right. Thank you, Jason. We appreciate your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Shannon Kenyon from Groundwater Management District Number 4.
Yes, please. Good morning. Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. I am Shannon Kenyon, the manager of Groundwater Management District Number 4 in Northwest Kansas. I am also the president of the Kansas Groundwater Management District Association, which encompasses all 5 Kansas groundwater management districts, as well as ex officio members. We had a meeting yesterday. We try to meet 4 times a year. So I'm going to encompass a little bit and kind of wrap up kind of the GMD week, so to speak, here at the Capitol, with just kind of touching a few things on that as well. So it's great to see some new faces as well as familiar faces on the committee. So I'm going to do just a really quick recap on kind of who GMD4 is for those. It's been a year since we've been here too. So GMD4, we are the blue in the state of Kansas. We are that blue area up in the northwest corner of the state, encompassing all or parts of 10 counties. We were formed in 1976 after the 1972 GMD Act. We have an 11-member board of directors. All of them represent all or portions of counties within Northwest Kansas. We do have one at-large position. Anybody with a water right or who owns 40 or more contiguous acres can be on that on our board of directors. 98% of the water used within our district is used for irrigation. And that irrigation is a huge economic driver for Northwest Kansas. Our funding is through assessments, like Jason alluded to too, but we are, instead of at the 22 cents, we are at 35 cents per acre foot. And then we have finances. I think you guys got the report. All of our finances and things like that are listed, are in there. And if you got any questions, I'll be happy to answer those at the appropriate time. Let's see. One thing that I like to revisit as much as I possibly can, and that is our mission statement. And I've put this up there. I feel that this is extremely important. My board reviews this, and it's so important in my opinion that it is plastered on the wall when you walk into the building of GMD4, so everybody, myself included, is reminded of why we are there every day. And that is the purpose of the district, is for proper conservation and management of the groundwater resources. It is also to provide local landowners and water users with the ability to be directly involved in the process by establishing their own regulations regarding the resource. Moreover, all necessary research and education are to be conducted under local direction. And finally, the district is to cooperate with other local, state, and federal agencies in their endeavors. And I preach this and believe it wholeheartedly on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to get into kind of a couple of the little activities that we've done throughout the year, as well as kind of a 2025 look as to what we're looking at coming up. First off, our management program, we do review this annually every February. That's when we have our annual meeting as well, but we do it just kind of internally with the board of directors. So we are going to, we have that updated. It was submitted to DWR in August after we'd gone through it. And really, we've just kind of done really it's just going to look a little bit more like we brought it into the 21st century instead of, the old type. But we've also updated it to include the 23 to 2023 LEMAs that we have, the local enhanced management areas, and updated the metrics such that the KGS provides us. And things like that. So we do have a hearing scheduled for that at our annual meeting, which is February 19th. So we're going to go through that process and get that updated. The next program that we really dealt with in 2024 was the AM mapping. I think you guys had a really great presentation by Dr. Jim Butler with the Kansas Geological Survey on some of that data. It was their project, not ours, but when we were told, this was coming into GMD4 first, we were really excited about it. But I also had some concerns in making sure that this was going to go off successfully. So we really made sure that the communication was extremely vital with those people. It's not often that you get a helicopter, for one, flying low across your ground, nonetheless than having this large hanging apparatus as well, and so there were some conspiracy theories, I've heard it all. I'm going to write a book about that one of these days. So, but it was really good. We really got the communication out, flyers. We had a media day, which I think was really great. You can see the picture here. Folks came out, the helicopter flew in, and then people could talk about the equipment that was on the ground, and then if they stuck around for a couple more minutes, because it was hot that day, then they could watch them pick this apparatus up with the helicopter and fly off. And they really thought that was cool. So being able to get up close and see that this is not a threat to your property, they're not out spying, wondering, what thing you have buried in your backyard. It was strictly just to do the geology. So the data that was coming in, and that was, I'm a bit of a nerd in that retrospect, and I likened it to looking at the Titanic for the first time underwater, because we're finally getting to see like where that bedrock is, and the peaks and the valleys and the paleo channels and where they are. But at the same time, on a policy perspective, I began to panic a little bit, and so working with KGS, they kind of camped out in our office for those couple weeks they were there, which was really nice to work closely with them and say, for now, we need to keep this in-house until I figure out what to do with this data before it does get out to the public. Because I was concerned about, in some areas, the possibility of panic pumping, because it might be a little closer to the end than we thought, as well as a lot of people may be wanting to do a change in point of diversion to put their well into a deeper portion of the aquifer. So, and working with the Division of Water Resources and things, they graciously, and showing them the data, they put a moratorium on any wells that can be re-drilled more than 300 foot. So you can still get your well re-drilled, but it has to be within 300 feet of the existing well for right now. I'm in the process of working on regulations and policy to integrate that so you can move outside of that 300 foot, but probably not access a deeper portion of the aquifer, just so that we can keep things more aquifer positive in that. So as well as we're going to continue to do more public education on those things. Next. We did have a big NRCS Division of Conservation training event. We did this a couple of years ago. They requested again. Huge success on that. The Kansas Water Office helped put it on for us. We're great partners with them, and they help with some funding on things as well as help putting that event together. We plan to do it again in 2 years. We also did our public outreach. This was the big one for us this year. We did local meetings, and I did this quite a bit in 2023, and it was a big, huge success. So we decided to go ahead and do some more. And so July and August of 2024, I did meetings in St. Francis, Goodland, Colby, Hoxie, and then even had a virtual meeting that was for those that couldn't make those meetings. And really what kind of sparked it was some of the strategic planning concerns. Now, kind of put yourself in the shoes of some people in Northwest Kansas that don't make it, out of Northwest Kansas very much. So at late May, early June, we have this huge helicopter flying around with a large apparatus. There's concerns with that, and so there's already conspiracy theories, and Shannon's going, nothing to worry about, nothing to worry about. And then the state comes in with strategic planning, as well, going, yeah, we're the government, we're here to help. And then it's just, there was some panic. So I said, we need to go out, we need to do some outreach just to kind of see what's going on out there. Well, I got to say, those strategic planning concerns actually kind of turned into some motivation. Some of my producers, we went out also to talk about the RCPP, but I thought, this is a good opportunity for us to start talking about the next Lima. We're only in year 2 of it, but let's start planning this thing. They're fired up. And so the concern was, after all of that, well, if we don't take care of this, like they have been taking care of it through their LEMAs, but if we don't amp this up a little bit, they might come and do something for us. So I was like, you might have something there. Let's talk about this. So we started talking about the next LEMA. And so that in turn took those comments back to our board of directors, and then we decided to do another bit of outreach here in January, a couple weeks ago. I then took out the AEM mapping data to them so that they could see, kind of let them know about the moratorium and the policies that were going forth there. I didn't have anybody squawking about that. They were very supportive of that. But we're really looking forward to the 2028 LEMA that's going to start. And so I am very positive in how that is moving forward. I mean, I know I've heard before that the current GMD4 LEMA doesn't save water. No, it doesn't really. But you know what? I now have a lot of attitudes and a culture that has changed in Northwest Kansas. And now we're now talking about significant. When I say significant, that's kind of in the eye of the beholder a little bit, but to where we're talking about Q stable and getting there faster than not. And I do think that in that 2028 we are going to see reductions, and I do appreciate the bill that was passed last year for the flexibility, because that's getting them to even agree to cut more. So I do think that we are going to be way closer to Q stable because of those things than we would have if not. But a big thing also is we need to plan. Yes, we're just in year 3, but it is my goal to have at least something sketched out on paper by this summer to take back to the public and see what they say about those things. And then I hope to have something by the end of the year submitted to the Division of Water Resources to get that process started so that producers can begin to plan, not just for 2028, but also for into the future and maybe a little more bit of a long-term goal. So that is really, and then we had an irrigation water day. And again, the Kansas Water Office helped host that for us. I'm really, really appreciative of their efforts there. We did that a couple weeks ago too, or a month ago. Huge success. We were actually worried about, if we're gonna have enough food for the people coming in to learn about water efficiency and irrigation improvements and things like that. And so then at the end, I'm like, how can we make this better? And they're like, you need to bring Lee Wheeler out, who was the engineer that did one of the presentations. We called it the Lee Wheeler 101. You need to bring him out for Lee Wheeler 102 in March. And so we are going to do another one of those. And yeah, the Kansas Water Office is going to help us out with that again too. So really appreciative of those efforts, and it's really getting a lot of gusto from my producers, and really being able to take the knowledge and become better efficiencies directly to their farm instead of, in that knowledge. And lastly, like I said, with the Kansas Groundwater Management District areas, or the Kansas Groundwater Management District Association, it is comprised of the 5 groundwater management districts. And as I've been up here before and said to you guys, we don't always see eye to eye. The groundwater management districts don't. But here in just the last year, and as the president, I am seeing an uptick, a great uptick in our unity, our communication, and our collaboration. And you look at, from GMD1 with their Wichita County LEMA success, GMD2 with their renewed focus and joint effort and collaboration with the Burton, Iguka, GMDs 3 and 4 and our positive public discussions on further conservation efforts, as well as GMD5 and their water quality focus. I do believe that 2279 has really been a big driving force of that. It has held us accountable, but it has also created that more collaboration and unity. And I really, I think that if that's allowed to be carried out, with minimal interruption, that you will see great things come from that 2279. So I just really want to thank the committee for their support in the local control process. It works in very positive and powerful ways, I think, as we've shown this week. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions? Representative Vaughn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Shannon, for all the great updates. I was kind of going to ask about kind of the total, water savings across the GMD. And so I appreciate you addressing that. And I'm excited to hear that there is an ongoing renewed enthusiasm to start working towards Q-Stable and take a look at those numbers again. And, I think that the sociological, cultural part of this we talk about a lot, and that is a key element of changing mindsets, getting everyone on board, and then making a plan that starts to save water. So in line with that, the one update I always love to get that you didn't mention was Sheridan County. I was just curious, how close are they to Q-Stable? Are they approaching it?
That's a very good question. We're going to talk about that here at the annual meeting too. Now, they're at, 11 inches on average, 11 inches per year. And we kind of figured out they probably need to go to about 9.5 possibly to meet that Q-Stable number. So in talking with the advisory committee and some other folks around in the area, it's just I think culturally speaking, are we at a point where I can just pose the challenge and they do it, or do we need to put it in an order? And that's our biggest question. When I said to at least our advisory committee, I think 9.5 is kind of the sweet spot, I didn't get anybody I kind of got some, but nobody was like, no, we can't do this, we can't do this, So actually, our annual meeting is in Hoxie, Kansas, which is in Sheridan County this year. And so Brownie Wilson with the Kansas Geological Survey is going to come out and present. We're really excited about that to kind of, I think, nudge it along a little bit. At least that's my hope, And so I've asked him to kind of talk about Sheridan 6, the past, present, and where we need to go for the future. And so that's where Sheridan 6 is right now. So I know good things always going on the front with them. It's the GMD4 Lima is just trying to get the nudge going on. And after my public meetings, every time I drove back to the office, I'm like, what just happened there? These are not the same people that I talked to 8 years ago. We're now, where I was scared to, see what the condition of my vehicle was leaving the parking lot. And now I'm like, did they just give me that number? Was crazy. It's just crazy. Yeah, it's great though. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it is such an awesome example of a community coming together and how it can start just in, one township is Sheridan 6, and how the neighbors in that are a little bigger. How those practices start to begin to be adopted, and that spread to a countywide Lima and then a district-wide Lima, and it can make all the difference. So I want to thank them for their efforts too, and I think it's amazing that they're so close to reaching Q-Stable.
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Yeah. And then I had one technical question, if I could.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So the one question was just about the AEM mapping. I was interested to learn about the moratorium. Since we're talking about doing the AEM in 1 and 3 as well, do you know if that extends to them or will extend to them?
It's up to them.
Okay.
That's up to them. So, and I think both of them, or at least I know GMD1, I'm not familiar with GMD3, but they've already got regulations addressing some things with the 300-foot moves, but that was just something that we put in place in ours. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was really smart as we kind of figure out. I think the data will provide so much benefit in understanding the aquifer, but I think we have to be also cautious. So I think that was really smart and has a lot of foresight on your part. So,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we had a bill back in '23 about moving water well locations or re-drilling within the 300 feet. We're trying to be ahead of some of these things, but the electromagnetic study that you did, we have an opportunity to do that in GMD 1 and 3 over the next 3 years. And I think the price tag on that was $875,000, something like that.
I believe in my region it was $750, but yeah, I'm not sure. Theirs is going to be different because they've got GMD1 smaller, GMD3 is bigger, so.
It's a lot bigger area, but they have a little more experience, and I think we can save a huge amount. Connie, am I close that we can save $1 million if we contract at this time to do the 2 GMDs? Okay. So just for the committee members to understand what's going on in the background with some of these things. You didn't talk that much about Lee Wheeler and the RCPP program coming in. You might give some of the members a real quick, brief overview of that.
Lee Wheeler's been a real driving force with this for training some folks to go out and do some system evaluations throughout all of the GMDs through this RCPP grant. But all 5 of his districts are very, very different, but we have some similarities as well. And so trying to really fit this program. And I think everybody involved in it is really committed to doing it correctly. It's got to be done right. We'll never see this money again if we don't do it right. And so it's a slow process getting it off the ground, but we're working through it. So we'd have liked to have seen it put together a while ago, but there's been some hurdles that we've had to overcome. And I believe that the Division of Conservation is working as best that they can to try to get through those and help us out. I think that on the federal level, there's some setbacks as well. So. But no, we're still working through the process of getting that out there.
Representative Pickert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Shannon, I might have missed it, but did you say how much water usage there was before the LEMA started for the new people here? I mean, now you're down to 11 inches.
Well, that's in the Sheridan 6 area. Yeah, no, they are down. That was an initial 20% reduction, and they succeed. They go above and beyond that most of the time. The GMD Fort Lima there's not really a definite number with that, and it's not a real reduction, but it says the word reduction, and there are quite a few that are reduced. It's just a matter, it's not really impacting them a whole lot, but it is on a social basis.
But before you started the LEMA, there was a lot greater water use. How much, do you remember how much it was? I'm sure you remember. And now it's down to about 11?
Yeah, it's 11 inches. I mean, some water rights could have pumped up to 24 inches in the area. I mean, the older water rights, that's what they were allocated for. That's how much they had on paper was 24 inches. That's what was allowed back in the flood days. But so that's what was on their water right. But most of them, a lot of them were down to 18 in anything that was currently appropriated. But yeah, it went down to 11 inches.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. They're doing wonderful things there. Thank you.
Further questions? I guess I have a quick comment. The state of Kansas has invested more in our water plant across the state over the last several years. We brought in some federal grants. All these things are beneficial. We're moving forward. You guys are cooperating extremely well. I appreciate that very much. I look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Thank you guys very much for that as well. So, yes, thank you.
Committee, I would like to move to final action on 2 of the bills that we've previously heard. And the first would be House Bill 2085, and I'd ask Kyle to give us a brief overview of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2085 would extend the expiration of permits issued under the Water Pollution Control Permit System from up to 5 years to up to 10 years.
Are there any questions for Kyle? Seeing none, we'll move into discussion. Are there any amendments? Seeing none, what are the committee's wishes on this bill?
Mr. Chair.
Representative Pickert.
Thank you. I move that we pass House Bill 2085 out of committee.
Is there a second? Representative Blex, it's been moved and seconded to move 2085 out of committee favorably. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next bill we'd like to consider is House Bill 2112, and we'll ask Kyle for a brief summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2112 would require examination fees for water supply system and wastewater treatment facility operator certification to not exceed the costs for such exams. The bill would also eliminate the certification of the requirement that the secretary allow certification of operators through correspondence courses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Kyle? I want to bring the committee's attention to a legislative post audit that was performed basically in December, I believe, of this particular issue. I think you have a copy of that in your files. And I'll give you a little bit of time to read that if you haven't. While you're reading, Representative Vaughn has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you highlighting the report. I did read it in advance of committee today, and I think it really speaks to the necessity of the bill before us. It highlights that currently the operators only have a 50% pass rate, which is something that we heard in testimony. And then in addition to that, when the $25 exam fee is adjusted for inflation, that amounts to, I think it said $112, which would be similar to, I think, what the current exam fees would cost. So by eliminating that cap, I think we could I think that would match more of today's dollars in terms of what the exam costs, and I think would lead to greater pass rates and training among the operators. So I found that interesting, that I think it supports the committee's work to address this issue, and I think with that, I'm in support of the bill, but I know we'll get to that, so thank you.
I think at the beginning here it says beginning in 1976. That's been a few years since this has been updated, and that's the purpose behind this bill. Representative Pishney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I heard the opponents of this bill, two things came to my mind as I was listening to that as their guiding thoughts for the opposition. One was the uncertainty about what that maximum fee might be, and the fact that we've referenced $100 and some, but will it be $200? Or so I heard that as a concern, and so I'm wondering if there's maybe needs to be some amendment not to exceed such and such a number. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not offering an amendment at this point. The second was that I heard the theme that I heard from some of the opponents was the national exam and the applicability to the smaller users and so forth. And I didn't know if there was some way to address that for users under 300 or user, I don't know the right numbers that I'm saying here. But again, I'm not offering an amendment, but I think we need to take those two things into consideration completely as we're considering whether or not to recommend this bill. Thank you.
Any other comments? Representative Pickert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the audit, on page 7, it says that KDHE reviewed the wastewater treatment exam questions specifically for small system and Class 1 examinations in 2020 and 2021. But I don't believe that the drinking water questions have been reviewed and updated for a very long time. And so some of those may not be relevant because systems have changed and, so.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to kind of piggyback off of what Representative Pishney said, I've still got some questions. I didn't have ample time to kind of think through a good solution, so I also don't have an amendment, but I do have some current concerns about the smaller rural water operators. I won't be supporting the bill. I appreciate the intent, but until I have some of my questions a little bit more thoroughly vetted, I won't be supporting this bill. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, comments? Representative Pickert.
Could we maybe refer to KDHE right now to ask a few questions?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Can we ask Kathy to come forward?
To the committee, pleasure to be here again. I will try to answer any questions some of you may have to provide you some clarification.
Well, one question I have is about the advisory board that hasn't really been active right now for the drinking water side. What is that group made of as far as like addressing the classes of water operators? Is there representation for the small?
Yes. So let me back up just a little bit. We've always had some type of advisory committee in place. Since the passage of the 1996 amendments to the Safe Drinking Water Act, which required all states to have a drinking water. I'm separating drinking water from wastewater because there is no federal requirement for wastewater. So I'm speaking strictly on drinking water now. And one of the strongly suggested approaches that EPA asked states to do was develop advisory committees. So we have had advisory committees since we implemented the 1996 amendments to the Safe Drinking Water Act. Now, how active have those committees been? It's been admittedly up and down. So the committee that you're asking about now is the committee that we re-established in 2019. And the membership of that committee, we sent out a request for participation to the Kansas Rural Water Association, the Kansas Municipal Utilities, the League of Kansas Municipalities, the Kansas section of the American Water Works Association, and the Kansas Water Environment Association. Now, AWWA really deals with the drinking water side of the program, and the Kansas Water Environment Association really works more with the wastewater side. So our committee, since we were looking at revision of our operator certification regulations, which covers both water and wastewater, we had representation from both sides on the committee. And we asked Rural Water Association to submit a small system or Class 1 operator to serve on the committee, and a small system or Class 1 wastewater operator, and then one representative, either a staff or a board member. And all of these, all the members or the organizations that I listed, Kansas Municipal Utilities provided Class 2 water and wastewater certified operators, and plus then you heard from Katie during the testimony. She was the staff representative for KMU. The League of Municipalities, we had them provide Class 3 certified operators for both drinking water and wastewater. At that point in time, I think the league was going through a bit of a change, and they didn't submit any names. And their staff member that we were working with at the time left the league and went on to another job. And so the current Wendy, the current representative, has now been more active and wants to make sure that they have the opportunity to appoint some Class 3s. And then the Kansas section of AWWA, that's drinking water, was a Class 4 representing the largers, and the water environment had Class 4 wastewater. So that's the makeup of the committee. So we were trying to cover all classifications.
Okay, and so it's my understanding that so the Class 1 is for small operations, a small community, either a rural or a small population, right? And then as the classes go up, there's a higher population that they're serving.
Right, higher population, more complex treatment technologies, and Class 1 and small system applies to distribution system only water systems, and groundwater, small groundwater systems. And once you get to class 2, that's the larger groundwater systems, the smaller surface water systems, and then 3s and 4s are the larger utilities, and mostly they are surface water.
Are there more small and class 1 operators in the state than the other classes?
Well, we work on, I can give you numbers of operators, but what I think is more important for this discussion are the number of water systems that any proposed regulations would impact. So we have a total of about 961 water supply systems in the state. It varies, but so, you know, approximately 960. Of those public water supply systems, there are, of the 960, 395 serve a population of less than 500 or 500 and less. 326 are distribution system only. That means they are purchasing treated water from another public water supply system. So they don't have, most of them don't have any treatment. They might boost chlorine in their distribution system, but that's the extent of the treatment that they do. So those two total up to 721 of our 961. And those, the small systems under 500 that have their own source, like treat groundwater, and then the distribution system only, either one of those categories would only have to have one level of certification. So they wouldn't have to have both a treatment, if you're a small groundwater system, and a distribution. They would only have to have treatment. If you're a purchasing system and a distribution system, you wouldn't be required to pass a treatment exam. You would only be required to have a distribution system certification.
Okay. And then on your advisory board, so there was one person for the class 1 system, right, to represent that, and you really didn't have much participation. Is that right?
That's true.
Okay. So maybe if this advisory board continues on, maybe you can get better representation, especially since there are so many class 1 and less and distribution system. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it definitely represents the majority of operators, right? Yeah.
I would say yes, the majority of the operators. So what's interesting now is they may work at a water system that's classified as a small system or class 1, but if they can pass the test for a class 4, they are class 4 certified. And that's one of the problems that we have with the way our regulations are now, is if someone has the 2 years of work experience at any water system, doesn't matter what kind, if they've got 2 years of experience and they take a class 4 test, that means they're class 4 certified. And what that means is that KDHE, we're giving you the certification, KDHE says you are qualified to operate a surface water treatment plant that serves 400,000 people at the City of Wichita, Kansas City Board of Public Utilities, Water District number 1 of Johnson County. And that person, even though he passed the test, may have never set foot in a surface water system. And our certification says he's qualified to be the operator in responsible charge. So that was the impetus for pulling this group together in 2019 to better align our certification regulations with what is actually happening out there in the real world, so that we know that if KDHE says this person is qualified to operate a class 4 surface water treatment plant, that they have the experience to do that, and they haven't just passed a test and all their experience has been at a mobile home park that maybe serves 50 people with one well. So we were trying to align that so that we could assure that when we say this person is certified, that they are actually qualified to operate at the level of certification they have.
Let me ask another question. Okay, so thank you, Kathy, for that explanation. So in the audit, okay, so it said that about half of the individuals passed the exam, so that means that half did not.
Right.
Okay, and kind of went on to explain some of that. So let's see here. Let me find my place here. We noted multiple instances of individuals taking the same test 2 or more times. For example, for small systems, the average number of exams, this is over from 2022 to 2024, the average number of exams per person was 1.2. Specifically, 24 people took the test twice, 6 people took the test 3 times, and 1 person took the test 5 times across the 3 years they analyzed. And then, so anyway, it's good that they can take it again, but it also said that, I'm going to just summarize because I can't find it right now, but probably the reason was they weren't studying to pass the test. My understanding is that a lot of these small systems operators are like, they can be the maintenance man in town, they could be the dog catcher. I mean, they're covering a lot of different jobs for a small community. And a lot of them have like maybe a high school education. So I'm wondering if the questions are worded in a way that, that they can understand them. And I mean, have you ever looked at how the questions are worded?
So we did originally, back to the 96 amendments that required us to develop a program, we did do a job, it was an internally led job analysis. And then based upon that job analysis, we did develop our question sets. That was there again, 20 plus years ago. Lots of treatment has changed. We have not had the capacity to do another job analysis. It was quite a challenge, and we did it mostly internally with a little bit of help from an outside contractor. Then the exam questions were developed and then reviewed by some operators from the operator community plus KDHE staff. And I will say that EPA has indicated to us that that is not the way we should be doing our exams and validating the question sets. We're not meeting the requirement of their guidelines. But yes, we do need to update the questions. But to do that, we would have to bring in an outside, independent group of people to help us do that. We can't do it internally.
What would that take to do that?
I don't know the answer to that question. It would be, I can try and find out, but it would be a significant effort because we would have to start with doing a job analysis. We can't just start with the questions. And I can give you the actual language from EPA's guidance here. Validated exam. An exam that is independently reviewed by subject matter experts to ensure that the exam is based on a job analysis and related to the classification of the system or facility. So it would be a pretty big effort for us to go and do a job analysis. It was a big challenge the first time we did it, and I don't think the results doing it internally were very satisfactory based upon the concerns we have about the test questions now, which those questions were based on that original job analysis.
So are there any alternatives?
Well, the alternative we looked at is using WPI, which we've talked about quite a bit here. They have the last job analysis they did, They surveyed over 10,000 operators across the country, and they have a whole team of experts that validate the exams based on that job analysis that's done. So I know we would never be able to match that level of effort. We have about just under 2,000 water operators in the state of Kansas, so that would be the scope of, that's who we would survey, are there's almost 2,000 operators.
And do you know what the current cost is for the WPI? That's the national exam.
It ranges from, depending on the type of exam and how we want the exam proctored, depends upon that determines the cost. I believe I sent a memo around. Did the committee get the memo that I sent out? It had the attachments from a WPI proposal that we received, and they range from about on the drinking water side, about $46 per exam to about $104, I believe it was, per exam. And the other thing I want to note is it was mentioned during the testimony that WPI doesn't offer small system exams. They do, in fact, offer small system exams, and they also offer customized exams. So we could work with them for specific customized exams if we felt like their standard exam wasn't quite meeting our needs.
Representative Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I do want to start out with a comment, which is based on the previous line of questioning and some things that I've heard. It sounds like, Kansas Rural Water, who is the primary opponent of this bill, was not participating in the advisory board meetings to contribute their thoughts to the outcome of what this would be. So I find that a little frustrating because we did have this bill last year, and in their testimony, they requested this legislative post-audit. We've received the post-audit that I think endorses the need for this type of legislation, and I think those, I don't know, where that disagreement comes from, but I feel like instead of being a good faith partner that's weighing this process down for what I feel like is a really important improvement for the quality and safety of our water supply in the state. So I want to work with everybody on this, but I do feel like there was not a good faith effort on the behalf of the opponents to try and move this issue forward. But even with that, I do hear the concerns from committee members and from Rural Water. So I would have a conceptual amendment, and I want to see how you feel about it, Kathy. And that would just be to change the proposed language from the secretary shall establish reasonable schedule of fees, but in no case shall an individual operator examination fee exceed $150 or the cost of an individual operator certification exam, whichever is less. And I know that might mean in the future it would have to be raised again, but if the max WPI exam currently ranges around $104, would that be something you might feel comfortable with just to assuage the fears of perhaps some of the other members or Rural Water?
So, right, I would be open to having that discussion. I would like to see the language before I say yes or no. So I'm giving myself a little bit of grace there. Certainly open to the discussion. I think whatever we can do to move this forward, to get folks a little better, more on the same page than where we are now, I think that's certainly something we could talk about and discuss. But I would want to see the actual bill language before I said, yes, I'd be on board with that. The one thing I do want to clarify, though, is Rural Water usually did have one staff member attending most of our meetings. So they weren't completely absent. It's just the operator that was appointed didn't participate, so.
Thank you for correcting the record on that, and I apologize for my misstatement.
No, that's okay, no problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's what I'm here for, is to clarify things.
Representative Droege.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I may have a question. I don't know if it's KDHE or somebody can explain it to me. I think we need an increase in the fees. We need good training, provided the best way that we can possibly do it. But why not any electronic testing? there's great testing procedures now with monitoring and everything, and because I'm thinking about more remote parts of Kansas where the travel expenses and even time constraints where you have a time set up to take a test and you're going to have to travel to get there. You probably have to stay overnight, and I'm talking just for level 1, class 1 things. It seems like it might be a little cumbersome for that. Am I wrong, or?
So with the fee, the cap of the $25, we can't afford to do the remote exams. Increasing the fee would allow us to use community colleges, and in fact, we're in discussions now with community colleges and doing a pilot project to see if it will in fact work for community colleges to provide the electronic exams. And the pilot project is taking place mostly in eastern Kansas, but we have also been in discussion with, I believe it's Seward County in Liberal, Seward County Community College in Liberal has also expressed an interest in doing that, and we are certainly open to that. Right now, we can't pay for it.
This says eliminates the ability of the Secretary of Health and Environment to certify. If it totally eliminates it, how are you going to?
So you're talking about the correspondence course, right? It's okay. So we have never had the correspondence course. That's not something that we have developed in lieu of the training. And right now, KDHE simply has never had the capacity to develop that type of correspondence course. So I was referring to the exam, so I'm sorry I misunderstood your question. There is training offered by our training providers all over the state. Sometimes the one big benefit of COVID was we all had to adapt to virtual meetings and virtual trainings. And so our training providers do also offer virtual trainings where people can log in from wherever they're at, their office, their home, whatever the case may be, and take advantage of those virtual trainings. And I know that our training providers, both Kansas Municipal Utilities and Kansas Rural Water Association, do provide those virtual opportunities. But I will say nothing replaces an in-person classroom experience.
Any further questions? Representative Blex.
I don't want to beat this dead horse, but have you considered, like, doing a conservation districts, a testing site to them, or certainly regional extension? Like I take private pesticide applicator at a local extension office, which saves a lot of travel and time. So have they considered that might be a cheaper option and make people not have to travel?
We have not looked at conservation districts or county conservation offices. That's not, conservation districts are not normally a group that we work with, so it probably hasn't occurred to anyone within the operator certification program to ask that question. So we can definitely check on that. One of the other things that we have talked about, and not internally and not necessarily with our districts, but having, we have 6 district offices, KDHE, and perhaps having the ability to have someone come into a district office and take an exam. I know they do that. They used to do that in Iowa. I think they've since moved to community colleges and those types of locations as well. But the conservation districts is something we could check on. We have to make sure, though, that the exams are secure and that the person logging on to the computer can only see the exam and not like go out and search the internet for the exam answer. So we would have to make sure that they were equipped with that type of security.
Thank you.
Representative Hellwig.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's all right. So try to help me wrap my brain around this. The bill in front of us, and maybe Mr. Chair too, is dealing with the schedule of fees on this. But I guess my question to KDHE would be, if this passes or if it doesn't passes, will this affect the way you guys give tests, or are you looking at changing the test based on whether this bill passes or not, or the way you conduct tests?
Yeah, if the bill doesn't pass, then we can't we don't have the revenue to go to the remote exams or use third-party exams. So, and even on the wastewater side, where they are doing their own internal question review, I think you heard about that during the testimony, they're looking, they won't be able to move forward with using community colleges with their exams either, because the $25 fee prohibits us from being able to use other services. So if the bill doesn't pass, we're probably looking at the status quo as far as exams. Unless we come up with, and we would have to check with our staff attorneys and so on and so forth to see if we can require the operators to pay the additional cost to the facility. So they'd be paying the $25 fee to KDHE and then directly paying the facility, which seems to me to add a layer of confusion to the whole process.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, at this late hour, late in the session, and I do feel this is an important issue. And I sense around the committee room some potential amendments or ways to improve this bill a little bit. I would at this time entertain a motion to lay this on the table to be taken up again on Tuesday of next week and continue this. Representative Blacks and seconded by, I thank you for your comments here, Kathy, and we'll continue this discussion. If you do have an amendment, conceptual, something that you think could improve this bill, put limitations on for the questions asked, please contact Kyle. And that gives you just a few days. We are short on time. Next week on Tuesday, we're also going to take up the 2113 bill, the large funding bill, and we'll hear from opponents at that time. And if possible, if we have time left at the end of that day, I'd like to take final action. So I want people to look at this closely. If there's confusion or questions like there are on this bill, we do have the Thursday after that to finish our work in this committee before turnaround. What's that?
Vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, we need to vote. I missed one small part here. All those in favor of laying this on the table for the moment, say aye. Aye. All opposed?